Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again that time of the week. It is time for the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. The only program on the wider airwaves that comes to you week to week with stories, commentary, and important information calling out the establishment on their BS. Now, as I like to say for every program, just to make it clear, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo or Western Michigan University, even though they might be insightful and totally on the pulse of what is going on in the American body politic. So anyway, we've got some stuff to talk about today. A lot going on in the fallout of the election. We'll have a lot to talk about with that. Go ahead and play a song real quick. Some promos, and then we'll move on to what's new for this particular week of corrupt establishment shenanigans. Yeah. You're listening to Wider. Keep that dial locked.
Support for Wider FM comes from Pedal Bicycles, now with 2 locations in downtown Kalamazoo and Portage. Pedal Bicycles has the right bike for every Kalamazoo rider, whether you're blazing the trails, cruising the streets, or just getting off the training wheels. To keep your ride running smooth, Pedal Bicycles offers multiple levels of repair services, anything from a quick tune-up to a complete overhaul. And to keep you safe and looking fly, Pedal Bicycles has all of the gear and apparel you'll need. To discover your spin within, head to 185 Romans Road in Portage, 611 West Michigan Avenue in downtown Kalamazoo, or pedalbicycle.com. Thanks, Pedal Bicycle, for supporting sustainable transportation, Buns of Steel, and Radio Evolution.
DIT Kalamazoo is a collective of individuals in Kalamazoo that seek to help the community's art scene thrive by providing venues for shows, organizing concerts, and booking a wide variety of music and art, both local and out of town. To find out more, feel free to visit ditkalamazoo.com to stay up to date on local shows and events.
searching for the ghost of Tom Jones. Out of a sleeping bag, the preacher lights up a bud and takes a drag. He's waiting for the time when the last shall be first and the first shall be last. In a cardboard box neath the underpass, with a one-way ticket to the promised land. Of old Tom Jones. Wherever you seen a cop beating a guy, wherever a hungry newborn baby cries, wherever there's a fight against the blood and hatred in the air, look for me, ma, I'll be there. Wherever somebody's struggling for a place to stand, for a decent job or a helping hand, wherever somebody's struggling to be free. Look in your eyes, man. You'll see me. 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 The highway is alive tonight. Nobody's fooling nobody as to where it goes. I'm sitting down here in a campfire light with the ghost of Tom Jones.
Talk about how the stars are the eyes of God. I think it's true, don't you? If you had any real balls, you'd jump off that bridge. Same thing happened to
Hello, Lighter listeners. Just tuning in. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Only here on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Well, the election tomfoolery continues, and we're going to be diving into that in a very precipitous manner in just a moment. So, what we're going to be doing, well, first of all, little lead off. So, it's the Hoodrat Strategist, right? So sometimes we talk about political strategy, and here's a political strategy that sounds a little bit oddball and strange, but I actually attempted something very similar to it over the summer. And I thought I would go ahead and share this with all of you wider listeners. This is from a friend of mine, Elizabeth Lindquist. She is from Rockford, Illinois. She's a organizer for Represent Us, and I believe it's her husband who came up with this. But it's a petition on moveon.org, and the concept is this. Bruce Springsteen, please recruit a group of 25 progressive artists to run for Congress in Republican districts in 2018, gaining control of the House for Democrats. And now they go on to say, the country has gone to hell in a handbasket. Well, I would certainly agree with that assumption. Again, Hoodrat Strategist radio program is transpartisan, but when our government is controlled by a ragtag group of corporatist Republicans, and corporatist Democrats too, there's mostly corporatist Democrats in there who might keep us from winning in 2020. We'll talk about that more later. And, of course, Trump's motley crew of drain the swamp, fill your cabinet full of Washington insiders and Wall Street insiders, with a couple of white supremacists in there for good measure. So, yes, I think the hell in a handbasket assumption assertion is pretty much spot on here. Anyway, it goes on to say, we need drastic change as soon as possible. Due to gerrymandered districts, it's impossible for typical Democratic candidates, even very good ones, to get a majority in the House. Bruce Springsteen could lead a group of 25 popular entertainers in moving to Republican districts, winning seats there, and regaining control. This would bring the Republican-led destruction of the country and the planet to a screeching halt. Hopefully, Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, and Leonardo DiCaprio will join him right away, with many others soon following. The American people love celebrities. Republican districts in the flyover states could be easily won by the right celebrity, and Bruce's credibility with blue-collar America makes him the perfect artist to lead the effort. Okay, so a lot of you listening to that might say that sounds really absurd. And I have to defend it by saying, yes, it's a radical idea. And maybe even a little absurd. But we're living in radical times. Make no mistake. So, let's focus, just hone it right down. Like the prime issue of our times, climate change. So, while I may be confident, okay, I really don't think Hillary would have done what was necessary without a lot of pushing from the left. Donald Trump, and really more particularly the Republican Party, who has a great deal of patronage from the oil lobbies and the energy industry lobbies to keep business as usual. Well, it is in their interest to dismiss climate science and climate change, and we have to wrest control from anybody who denies it at this point, because that is dangerous, extremely dangerous. If not for us, well, personally, for my part, I would like my grandchildren to be able to visit the coastal cities without wearing scuba gear. So, and of course, that's a joke, but it really isn't. Some of the most devastating effects of climate change could really put our species at risk of extinction. And that's no exaggeration. So yes, we need something dramatic and we need something fast. Now, is 2 years enough time to build a progressive movement that can wrest control of these Rust Belt areas from Trump and the Republicans who are leeching off of his success, the down-ballot Republicans leeching off his success? Well, realistically, I'm not sure. See, the ball that got rolling with Bernie Sanders this year. There was a hope that it might translate into down ballot victories for progressive Democrats like himself, such as our own Paul Clements, who ended up getting trounced by about 30 points. Now, this is definitely not to say that Bernie Sanders was some sort of anomaly. No, I would say he was very much a beacon of the sort of leftist politics that are to come in this country. But there was a lack of mobilization for those progressive Democrats. Now, there's lots of stuff coming up on the pipe. We've got similar ideas that are not so outlandish. The idea of brand new Congress. There's some people I know, a few friends of mine are involved in this, and they want to basically sweep the board. The overall goal or objective of brand new Congress is to put a laser sight on every single congressperson who is subservient to corporate interests or lobbyists, be them Republican or Democrat, and try to knock them out of the House in 2018 using a presidential-style campaign. Well, their effort could work. I'm not really sure. You see, the way that the Democratic Party is restructuring itself is some pause for concern. Chuck Schumer is going to be the head, and I know that usually that's how politics work. He was next in line for it, but he's also a Wall Street neoliberal Democrat. And if that is the type of leadership the Democratic Party is going to have, that's going to be the most visible element of the Democratic Party. And the people who voted for Trump in this election are not going to have any reason to switch sides because they say it's the same old Hillary stuff, the same old neoliberalism. So, brand new Congress. It really depends on, I guess, how much reach out they can do, how much ads time they can buy. But an idea like this, with the celebrities stepping in. Now, there is something to say about the strategic use of star power when it comes to social issues. One of my favorite cases in point is Shailene Woodley. She's the young lady who's in the Divergent films, Secret Life of the American Teenager, and then some other coming-of-age movie where I think she has health problems. I can't really remember. But she her actions helped shed light on Standing Rock to a degree that it probably would not have captured the public imagination to the extent that it did were it not for her direct involvement. And as you see, celebrities keep funneling towards Standing Rock. And what it does, it punctuates attention onto it. These personalities, these people like Shailene, people like, I'm having a brain freeze, the guy who played the Hulk. Susan Sarandon, Francis Fisher, I think was just down there. Having those kind of people get involved in the political or activist sphere helps shed light on those issues in ways that wouldn't necessarily capture the American public otherwise. I hate to say it, but this is a critique of our country in general. A lot of us have our priorities wrong as far as what we pay attention to. And I was talking to this to an extent about a separate issue about how the average person is not a news junkie like the Hoodrat Strategist. They're not going around sucking up information. A lot of millennials are more like that, but the casual viewer, listener, they're not going to be super in tune to politics to the degree that is going to be necessary for the continued survival of our movement and potentially of our species. Now, what an idea like this would do is it speeds up that public attention very quickly. Especially, that's a big news story. And the mainstream media can't ignore that. Bruce Springsteen and a whole bunch of other celebrities decide to run for office. That's big news. That becomes the media focus because it will make them money because a lot of people will want to know about this and what's going on. I had a similar idea I was pitching after the presidential primaries, the idea that celebrities should go stump for down ballot Bernie-crats. It would be a good place to pivot the political revolution, in that manner. Of course, hindsight being 2020, that particular idea never really gained any legs through my connections. And who knows? Maybe it could have been a little bit more effective. I think one of the main issues with this election was, Hillary lost because she is just not an appealing candidate. And a lot of those resources got focused into trying to prop up Hillary, bolster her strongly enough so that she'd have a safe margin against Trump. And of course, that didn't really work out. If we'd been in hindsight, maybe we could have devoted more of those resources to protecting the Senate and the House and strengthening the progressive positions there. But we are where we are at today. So, you think it's a silly idea? Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Somebody call the boss. So we got a land of hope and dreams we got to get to, and we sure as heck ain't getting there anytime soon. If the corporate lock on our politics, if we let the cement dry that has occurred from this election, then we are all pretty much, I don't know what can I say on air? We are in a bad position. I guess I'll say that. By the way, funny aside. So speaking of Shailene Woodley, so when I was in Hollywood, pitching this idea to various personalities, and just a little bit of advice for any other hoodrats out there who find them in the position to be pitching political strategy to people usually far above your pay grade. So the famous activist types were pretty easy to approach and talk to them about this idea. Your Jimmy Dores, your Greg Palasts, your Naomi Consts, who most of our listeners probably, I don't know, you guys probably aren't familiar with those names. If you aren't, look them up. Awesome people, incredible voices in the anti-corruption and progressive movements. So I was able to talk to them easily. I think Shailene was the only movie star celebrity slated to speak that day. So I was just standing at the stage. We got some mutual friends. I was thinking that'd be a good. And it was like, oh, I'm friends with so and so, and here's my thing. I've been talking to people, pitching it. Celebrities going around the country stumping for down ballot Bernie-crats. And when she got off stage, she was immediately swarmed by 30 people. Just I don't know where they came from. It was just, and so a valuable lesson to be learned there is if you're trying to talk to a movie star celebrity about political strategy, you're probably not going to manage to do it in public because they will get immediately swarmed by people who want selfies and autographs and such. So, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will keep chit-chatting about everything that's going down here in America this week. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
may not be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Are you trying to get your local Kalamazoo business name out to the WMU and Greater Kalamazoo communities? Why not do so while supporting Radio Evolution through underwriting and donations? For more information, please visit widrfm.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, brief musical interlude while I get some housekeeping done. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo.
bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. So, we want to move on to the next topic, which we are going to talk about is election integrity. Now, this whole election year has been riddled with pretty despicable assaults on our democratic process by those very people that are supposed to gatekeep them. If you did not know, America, we are ranked 44th in the world for the integrity of our elections, how free and how fair that they are, how often our voices are actually represented. On this program, we've talked a bit about the irregularities that went on during the Democratic presidential primaries. I know a lot of my listeners are pretty aware of the bias that was shown during WikiLeaks. There are also numerous instances of outright suppression and fraud. Voters were knocked off of the rolls in places such as Brooklyn, Arizona. There was long lines, polling places shut down. That was not necessarily a result of the Democratic Party, but it did hurt Bernie's numbers in particular. California, there are many instances of party affiliations being changed, provisional ballots being handed out, exit polls mismatching the actual results to a degree that far exceeded the margin of error. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has happened again. This time, it's happened in the general election. Exit poll disparities and a little thing called cross-check. Now, I've been hearing all week, even from a lot of people on the left, well, Trump won fair and square. Well, no, he didn't. Now, I have to ask this question. What? Why, moreover? Does no one question these election irregularities when they occur? And this has been a consistent pattern. In 2000, Al Gore was the only one I recall speaking out, but even he did not explicitly mention the fraud that went on in Florida and other states. He simply wanted a recount. 2004, John Kerry, silent on it. A lot of us remember that famous "Don't Tase Me, Bro" article, and he specifically referenced some of the investigative reporting that Greg Palast did, uncovering the fraud that secured George W. Bush the victory in 2004. And John Kerry, even he says that he read the material. He agrees with it. But no action was taken. Now, there was also evidence of similar fraud going on in Obama's elections, some against him, but he carried such a plurality of the vote that they didn't actually end up affecting the overall turnout of the election. This time it did. Crosscheck ended up disenfranchising thousands of Latino and African American voters disproportionately throughout the country in this election. And again, there was more evidence of that fraud. Now, let's get down to brass tacks and talk about what kind of shenanigans set the stage in this election to make this happen. So this is from an article in The Nation. It says, did Republicans rig the election? The 2016 election was the first presidential contest in 50 years without the full protections of the Voting Rights Act. That's right, because the Supreme Court ruled in Shelby County versus Holder that states with a long history of discrimination no longer need to have their proposed voting changes approved by the federal government. Partly as a consequence, 14 states had new voting restrictions in effect for the first time in 2016, including important swing states like Wisconsin and Ohio. We'll never know how many people were kept from the polls by these restrictions, but in states like Wisconsin, they had at least some impact on the outcome. Donald Trump carried the state by 27,000 votes, but 300,000 registered voters, according to a federal court, lacked the required forms of voter ID. Turnout in Wisconsin was at its lowest level in 20 years and fell by 52,000 in Milwaukee, where 70% of the state's African-American population lives. We saw some of the greatest declines were in the districts we projected would have the most trouble with voter ID requirements, said Neil Albrecht, executive director of the city's election commission. And that's what he told to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Also, on Election Day, there were 868 fewer polling places in states with a long history of voting discrimination like Arizona, Texas, and North Carolina. These changes impacted hundreds of thousands of voters, yet received almost no coverage in the media. In North California, my colleague Joan Walsh reported, black turnout decreased 16% during the first week of early voting because in 40 heavily black counties, there were 158 fewer early polling places. Republicans set the early voting hours and locations for all 100 counties, and black turnout decreased the most in the 17 counties that had only one polling place for the first week of early voting. He goes on to talk about how the media has really just blatantly ignored this assault on voting rights. It's predominantly been taken part by the GOP. This has a lot to do with demographics. Now, as we've seen, the Democrats are not innocent lambs. They will engage in this sort of chicanery when it benefits, say, a corporate candidate who ended up losing to Donald Trump. But for the most part, the Republicans, it is in their best interest to lower voter turnout, because what they can do and what they did in this election is they get a plurality of white voters, white male voters, and they pass these voter ID laws to people who demographically and statistically are less likely to have that sort of identification on them. And also they trump out this specter of voter fraud, which is the idea of voting more than once. And statistically, it's statistically insignificant. There's only been 4 arrests, I believe, of actual voter fraud going on. So the extent which this can be done in a widespread manner is very unlikely and is basically BS that the GOP trots out there to justify passing these restrictive voting laws. So, yeah, the GOP was making it harder to vote. And in fact, voter fraud, the only instance of voter fraud this year was from a Trump supporter in Iowa who got caught. So that's one element of it. So let's go back to talking more about the whole cross-check situation. So I'm going to have the man himself explain it a little bit, and then I will go on to comment just a moment. So this is Greg Palast, famous investigative reporter, and he will be discussing cross-check.
My name's Greg Palast. I'm an investigative reporter. And every 4 years, I become a crime reporter. Crime, election theft. Why are these such secret lists?
This is a list I'm not supposed to have, and you're not supposed to see.
Look, I've been reporting on U.S. elections shenanigans since Florida 2000. That's 16 years. Now, the problem is I can't report this in U.S. newspapers or on the U.S. tube. I report this for BBC television and The Guardian. And lately, I've been in Rolling Stone magazine. But why? Why do I have to leave my own country to report about my country's elections? The answer is because what I've discovered is that our elections are rigged. Donald Trump is right. Our elections are rigged. The problem is it's his boys and the billionaires who've been rigging the elections. It started in 2000. In 2000, I discovered while working for The Guardian and BBC that Jeb Bush and Katherine Harris had removed tens of thousands of black men from the voter rolls, calling them felons, mother rapers and father stabbers, who aren't allowed to vote. Well, I got a hold of their secret little purge list, and what I found out is that of the 56,000 black folk that they removed from the voter rolls before the 2000 election, exactly none were guilty of any crime except voting while black. Now, you remove those 56,000 black people, and what do you get? George W. Bush is president, who won the presidency of the United States by winning Florida by just 537 votes. 537 votes, not counting 56,000 votes by black people wrongly removed from the voter rolls. Something brand new. Donald Trump says the election's rigged. It is. He's rigging it. His buddies have come up with a system called interstate cross-check. And here's how it works. See, the Trumpster said that people are voting many, many times. Now, he's not just talking through his comb over. This is serious stuff because his minions are acting on it and removing literally hundreds of thousands of voters from the voter roll on the accusation that they've committed the felony crime of voting more than once. Example, James Brown Sr. in Georgia voted, and then he voted again. Of course, under the name James Brown Jr. That's the problem. They are accusing hundreds of thousands. In fact, their suspect list includes 7.2 million Americans accused of voting twice, a felony crime. Can you imagine? And the result is that by November 8th, 1 million Americans are going to find their names removed from the vote rolls. So take a look at this. It explains how cross-check works and how it can fix the election.
This is a list I'm not supposed to have, and you're not supposed to see. It's a list of 7,200,000 voters. Maybe you're on the list. If your name's on this secret list, your ballot can get canceled. Legally, this is no joke. Why? Because you've been accused of voting twice. Who in the world would be so devious, so slithery and deceitful that they would accuse millions of Americans of committing the felony crime of voting many times.
This voting system is out of control. You have people, in my opinion, that are voting many, many times.
Voting many times, Donald? You claim millions of Americans commit voter fraud? That's how they plan to steal this election. How do I know? How do I get these lists? I'm Greg Palast. I'm an investigative reporter. Back in 2000, I was working for BBC Television, and I uncovered a list of 56,000 black men and women who were...
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was Greg Palast. He was explaining a little bit about the intricacies of cross-check and how it played out in this election. I'm going to expand on it a little bit further when I come back, but first let's go ahead and play a real quick show promo. Got your dial locked. It's the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR FM. And your only source for political revolution.
I'm DJT. I'm a person. I host the show DJT in the Mondo Superlatives. That's not a person, nor is it people. I don't know what it is.
It's just something that comes out of my head every week.
Don't have any little growth clusters I can chew on, maybe, do you?
DJT and the Mondo Superlatives. Tune in every Monday from 3 to 5 on your only source for Radio Evolution, 89.1 Wider FM.
Hello, we're back. I want to expand a little bit more on what happened with this election. So, this is from an article in the London Economic, and the title is "Donald Trump was right. The election was rigged in his favor." So, I'll read an excerpt. So, Trump was constantly banging on about debunked claims of large-scale voter fraud, urging supporters to volunteer to monitor the polls and creating an atmosphere where hysteria and conspiracy theories abounded. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani talked about busloads of people voting numerous times in big cities. He also quipped that dead people generally vote for Democrats rather than Republicans. Oh, hardy har har. Yet truly, you are more likely to be struck by lightning in the next year than to find a case of voter fraud by impersonation. 31 in over a billion ballots cast from 2000 to 2014, according to Loyola Law School's research. So, to continue, in 2012, the Arizona State University study concluded, while fraud has occurred, the rate is infinitesimal. An in-person voter impersonation on Election Day, which prompted 37 state legislatures to enact or consider tougher voter ID laws, is virtually non-existent. Yet, despite the lack of evidence or convictions for the crime of multiple voting, certain Republican figures devised draconian systems to prevent it, which have also served to deny electorally significant sections of the population of their right to vote, disproportionately ethnic votes, which are way more likely to be Democrats. So, go a little bit further. Oh man, this is just some bad juju. So, anyway, Palast and his team, they discovered Crosscheck and amassed a list of 7.2 million voters accused of being potential double voters. That's a lot of people. Yeah, despite such an enormous list of suspects, there have been only 4 arrests. And Palast goes on to say, it's a crime to deliberately register to vote twice. You could go to jail for 5 years, and to organize double voting on a significant scale is practically impossible. They are basically arresting no one. About 4 arrests out of a list which identified around 7 million potential double voters, and I doubt these arrests are even due to the list. Palast's team managed to get a hold of over 2 million names identified as potential double voters and soon began to spot obvious mistakes. The fail-safes of national insurance number and date of birth meant to make the system foolproof were not attached and appeared to have been ignored. So he goes on to give an example. The most common name in the world is Mohammed, explains Palast, scanning through the list of names. So, for example, under this Trump hit list, Mohammed Saeed Mohammed is supposed to be the same voter as Mohammed Osman Mohammed. In fact, about 1 out of every 4 middle names don't match, and junior and senior don't match. So, for example, with James Brown is a very common black name. They are matching James Brown Sr., James Brown Jr., and saying it's the same voter, and that the middle names don't even match. And U.S. Census data shows that minorities are overrepresented in 85 of 100 of the most common last names. If your name is Washington, there's an 89% chance you're an African American. And if your last name is Hernandez, there's a 94% chance you're you're Hispanic. So, Palast concluded that about 1.1 million people spread over crucial swing states were deprived of their right to vote last Tuesday. Trump's victory margin in Michigan was 13,107, and the Michigan cross-check purge list was 449,922. His margin in Arizona was 85,257. The purge list there is 270,824. And Trump's victory margin in North Carolina was 177,008. And the cross-check purge list was 589,393 people. So, yeah, folks, that's the situation we're in. Voter suppression, election fraud left and right. And give me a moment. I'll bring up some of the exit poll numbers, too. So, here's my comments and thoughts on this. Of all the protests going on all over the country about Donald Trump, I don't hear anyone talking about this. Now, of course, there's the obvious reasons to be against Trump. He's led a xenophobic, racist campaign. A lot of our friends who are Muslim or Hispanic or black feel in palpable danger because of the type of people that he's emboldened to act like just, deplorable, I guess would be the word. Hillary Clinton, who was so dead set on becoming the next president that her political party engaged in all kinds of chicanery, all kinds of fraud, all kinds of bias in order to prop her up as the nominee, they are completely silent in the face of voter disenfranchisement. Even Bernie Sanders was when it happened to him and his supporters. So why? Why is there this silence? Why does nobody speak about this? Our right to vote. How our election integrity is so weak. And something it reminded me of was back in 2000 when Al Gore was speaking towards wanting a recount. There was a visceral backlash against him, even from a lot of Democrats. The idea is don't be a sore loser. Take the results of the election and just, go ahead and take that. There has been a backlash against people who speak out about these sorts of issues, about election integrity. There's something, I think it's just something ingrained in our culture. We want to believe that our elections are fair, that our elections are free, when they have so many problems. I want to read this article from Theodore de Sinosaurus, and he's talking about some of the fraud that went on. And this is, again, exit polls, which are used by the UN to judge election integrity in other nations. But he goes on to say this. According to exit polls conducted by Edison Research, Clinton won 4 key battleground states, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Florida, in the 2016 election that she went on to lose in the computerized vote counts. With these states, Clinton would have won the Electoral College with a count of 302 versus 205. Clinton also won the national exit poll by 3.2% and holds a narrow lead in the national vote count. Exit polls were conducted in 28 states. In 23 states, the discrepancies between the exit polls and the vote count favored Trump. In 13 of these states, the discrepancy favoring Trump exceeded the margin of error of the state. And I'll go ahead and read off. So, the margin of error. Hold on. So, what we see in some of these states, the margin of error hovers around about 3%. Donald Trump in New Jersey, which is the highest, it was 12.9% discrepancy. In Missouri and Utah, it was off by 19 points. South Carolina, 15.7 points. The margin of error in favor of Trump in Jersey, that's the highest, 11%. 10% in Missouri, 9% in Utah, 8 points in Ohio. And discrepancy that was larger than the margin of error. Now this is really the important part. This is the those places where how many points off was it by the margin of error, and if it's particularly high, like less than a percentage point, that usually means that there's been some shenanigans going on in the election. Highest one is Missouri at 6.3%. Second highest, New Jersey at 5.2%. Utah at 3.9%. So what is this double standard where we can judge other nations' election integrity based on these numbers, but when it happens here, everyone just ignores it? I've presented this information online, and it gets debunked out of hand. I actually had some very incredulous people tell me that I was corrupt for spreading misinformation, so I find kind of humorous. But these are the numbers, people. I don't make this stuff up. You guys can find this. It's this election table. It's tdmsresearch.com. 2016 presidential election table. And look, pundits can lie. Opinions can be skewed. Data doesn't. Data does not lie. And data has showed in 2000, 2004, 2016, at least several times, that our elections, our democracy have been under attack, are frail, and no one wants to say or do anything about it. Are you outraged? Because I'm pretty outraged. I've made no secret. I didn't really like either of the main candidates in this election. But frankly, it sickens me that yet again, look, if the people wanted an oligarchy, if she actually won without all of this voter suppression and election fraud, then she should be the next president. Same goes with Trump. If he had somehow won and there'd been a bunch of voter fraud and election fraud against, not voter fraud, election fraud and voter suppression against him, well, then he should win. There should be an investigation. There should be some sort of accountability here. We should investigate. We should figure out who actually won, and then that person should be installed as the next president. But that's not how it works, I guess. I guess we're just supposed to ignore these problems and move on to the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, we are never going to fix the fundamental flaws of our democracy until we make sure that everyone's vote counts. And as of right now, it does not. Elections are won or lost based on sketchy voting rules, voting rights laws, voter suppression legislation, and basically who can cheat the best. Well, the Republicans cheated the best in this general election, and that's why Trump is going to be our next president. And frankly, we should all be outraged. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for radio evolution, for political revolution, sorry. Keep your dial locked. Got much more coming up on the way.
You're listening to Wider Kalamazoo.
Great Scott!
89.1 FM, Radio Evolution. Wider is proud to be sponsored by Alamo Drafthouse Cinema.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Located in downtown Kalamazoo, the Alamo has a restaurant and bar that will serve you during your movie.
Great Scott!
In addition to featuring current box office films, the Alamo also has specialty screenings and events throughout the year.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
More information on the Alamo and showtimes can be found at drafthouse.com/Kalamazoo.
Audio Engineering Society of Western Michigan University is a registered student organization full of audiophiles and music enthusiasts assisting each other with learning basic and advanced techniques of audio engineering and production. Consider AES of WMU as a workshop club where members visit weekly and learn new tips and tricks to make their production sound better. We all make different music, so we all have unique insights into the production of other genres. To find out more, visit us on Facebook or at the Dalton Center at WMU campus.
Quick musical interlude while I get some housekeeping done, ladies and gentlemen. Hoodrat Strategist will be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So let's talk a bit about Mr. Trump. Oh, Lord. So one of the big things he ran his campaign on, and, the big reason he was able to scoop up a lot of the independent populist voters, maybe the same type of people who would have voted for New Deal Grandpa, was his promise to drain the swamp. He was going to come in there and be an anti-establishment candidate. Me and my co-host, we've talked about this before. The whole snake oil salesman thing. He's going to make all these promises about, unclogging the system of corruption. And to trust a billionaire con man to do those things is pretty foolish. Granted, look, I don't want to say that Trump's supporters are fools. A lot of people can see through him. A lot of people, though, a couple weeks ago we did that video of the coal country in North Carolina who voted, a region that voted for Trump in higher numbers in the primary than anybody else. And these people were desperate. The economy had been left in shambles. And there was this great interview. This guy talked about how he had voted for Obama twice. He was planning to vote for Trump next time because they were so desperate for a change agent that even if you have like these natural inclinations that tell you, oh, this guy is just a total con artist, you need to believe that. Because, there are people in this town who collect recyclables in order to make ends meet. And they're that's not Michigan recyclables. They're like collecting tin cans by the pound in order to feed themselves, to make enough money. Yeah, in a situation like that, I would probably give somebody like Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. But sadly enough, as many of us really saw coming, he's poised to disappoint them pretty much immediately. So we're going to talk about this article from the Washington Post. So the headline with this is Donors and Lobbyists Already Shaping Trump's quote-unquote Drain the Swamp Administration. The chant echoed through Donald Trump's boisterous rallies leading up to Election Day. Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. We are fighting for every citizen that believes that government should serve the people, not the donors and special interests. The billionaire real estate developer promised exuberant supporters at his last campaign rally in Manchester, New Hampshire. But just days later, there is little evidence that the president-elect is seeking to restrain wealthy interests from having access to and influence his administration. It's not just corporate lobbyists who are playing early, visible roles in this new power structure. Some of Trump's biggest political donors are shaping the incoming administration, including Rebecca Mercer, a daughter of billionaire Robert Mercer, who is figuring prominently in behind-the-scenes discussions, according to people familiar with the transition. Mercer is among 4 major donors appointed by Trump on Friday to a 16-person executive committee overseeing his transition. The others are campaign finance chairman Stephen Mnuchin, New York financier Anthony Scaramucci, and Silicon Valley investor Peter Thiel. Meanwhile, top campaign fundraisers and a raft of lobbyists tied to some of the country's wealthiest industries have been put in charge of hiring and planning for specific federal agencies. They include J. Stephen Hart, chairman of the law and lobbying shop Williams & Jensen, Michael McKenna, an energy company lobbyist who is overseeing planning for the energy department, and Dallas fundraiser Ray Washburn, who has been tapped to oversee the Commerce Department. This list goes on and on. And granted, look, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I can't believe Donald Trump didn't adhere to his campaign promises. No, I totally believe that. That's exactly what is expected to happen. This guy is like, I think he was writing notes during Bernie's speeches and just said, okay, this is the BS I'm going to feed to the American public in order to get myself elected. It'll be excellent, tremendous, yeah. The question is not, what we're going to do as far as, being able to say, I told you so. It's what are we going to do with this information? And that's to be about reaching out to those people in Trump country. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to speak a little bit more about that. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
WIDR is in need of street team members. Don't know what it means to be a street team member? Well, here's what it means. As a street team member, you will have the opportunity to help promote the station and all the events that we put on around Western's campus. You will gain behind-the-scenes access to awesome events and real-world marketing and promotional experience. For more information, go to widrfm.org and click on the Get Involved page.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start off real quick, say just once again, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University. Even though they might be very insightful and dope as heck. So, we were just talking about how Donald Trump's promise to drain the swamp was basically a complete and total lie. Now, this is something we all pretty much expected, but what do we do with this information? Well, now here's something we need to talk about. Why did actually it was only about a quarter of the country, but still, regardless, why did so many of these people vote for Donald Trump? Well, these promises, the frustration, and there is a cauldron of causes that cause this, primarily being the neoliberal policies that strip these people of their jobs and dignity over the last couple of decades, and the neoconservative ones, because this really stretches back to the trickle-down economics of Ronald Reagan. So there's been a full-tilt assault on these people's economic way of life for the past several decades. And how did a figure like Trump end up seizing it? Like, granted, I always thought, like, the American people were going to elect for something outside the status quo this year, but near the last couple weeks of the election, even I thought Hillary was going to win. And granted, I only thought that was after that tape got published of him saying those vulgar things, grab them by the you-know-what. I thought that, as much as America wants something outside the status quo, I just feel like that would be the nail in the coffin. Well, apparently, when it boils down to it, people would rather vote for the a-hole than the status quo. So we need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and try to figure out what needs to be done and what can be done. Because another element of this is a culture war. A culture war that a lot of liberals and people on the coasts thought had been basically won. Multiculturalism, embracing thereof. And about a year ago, I had some very vocal comments about the way we were conducting this particular culture war. And what I was referencing was the culture of the PC culture, the whole social justice warrior thing. Now, overall, I think quote unquote PC culture has noble aims. It's about fostering dialogue. It's about basically being inclusive and making sure people are comfortable. But our tactics, I would go so far as to say the tactics of PC culture in the years leading up to this election really were one of the elements that fanned the flames for the insurgency of a figure like Trump. Why do I say that? Because the overall tone of PC culture was very shrill, accusatory, to a point of being almost like the left-wing answer to McCarthyism. Find the secret oppressor in your particular circle, call them out, and cast them out for making what may have been, some mistakes, or for basically saying or doing things that you disagree with. Now, we have to draw a line in the sand here. I'm not talking about people who are explicitly racist, but we need to do a better job of explaining our position in such a way that we aren't aggressive about it. And that's exactly what we did. We shut out those who said or did things that we found politically incorrect. And we put them in a little box and we said, go away. Do not come back. Perish, send away the non-believer. What we need to do is have a dialogue of communication. And I'm speaking primarily here about white people. Let's be clear about this. I am not saying that a bunch of BLM activists need to go out there in Trump country and try to explain themselves. No, that's not their job. Their job is to fight for their own rights in their own battlefields in the inner cities where they are being oppressed. I'm talking about all y'all white people out there, you white liberals who don't know how to talk to your friends and relatives in the Rust Belt, who can't summon up the imagination to say something beyond, Uncle Don, you're racist and what you said is racist. No, you need to explain to Uncle Don why it's a problem. You need to explain in calm and non-divisive terms, oh, well, this is why they say Black Lives Matter, or this is why Muslims are feeling persecuted. Because if the lesson we take from this election is that they are just so far on the other side that we need to just reinforce our echo chamber, our little liberal bubble, that cultural war is going to boil over into an actual, possibly violent thing. And if we don't start now, we are in for some really nasty stuff in the future. People may not I think people underestimate the extent to which our participation and reclaiming the Rust Belt, that is going to be the great and most important battlefield of the next several years. Because what this election has shown is that these people still have power in this country. And if we disassociate ourselves from them, if we belittle them, if we do not try to explain our position within our social justice realms, then we are ceding that ground to the alt-right. If you don't know alt-right, it's their catchy new millennial term for racist POSs and white supremacists and all that. Now, I know a lot of us have noticed in the last week, coming out of Trump's election, these isolated cases of intimidation and racist attacks that have really skyrocketed. But keep in mind, that's not the worst of it. The worst elements of the white supremacy movement, this alt-right thing, have become emboldened and they have felt legitimized. And they have a plan. This is from a Huffington Post article. I'm going to read an excerpt from it, and this is talking to this guy named Matthew Heimbach, who is basically a young organizer of this. Now, goes on to say, the ethno-state was a property of almost 2 acres down an unpaved driveway off a small road, a couple Trump yard signs planted in the grass. They said they'd purchased it about 6 weeks ago from a bank that repossessed it. He's fixing up a dilapidated house that he plans to convert into offices and living quarters. For now, the comrades lived in 2 trailers, one of which had a flag with a Celtic cross, a common white nationalist symbol, hanging in the window. There were 2 men sitting outside the trailer, but when they saw me, they hastily went inside. So, goes on to say, they are basically, they founded this organization in 2015 called the TWP. They see it as a pragmatic vehicle for white nationalism, one that could transcend the infighting that historically plagued the movement. In April, almost 20 groups came together to sign a pact in Georgia and chant "Death to the Jews." The alliance, which is called the Nationalist Front, now contains 24 groups. So as you can see, these white nationalist groups are starting to form a coalition. Creepy. Keep going. Heimbach and Parrott wrote its constitution. No violence, no white supremacy. Every member organization has to be willing to work with the others. The TWP successfully pushed to exclude Nazi imagery from the coalition's branding. TWP would act as the political arm. Anyone belonging to a National Front organization who ran for office would do so as a TWP candidate. The other National Front organizations would help with logistics and communications. At least that was the plan. Heimbach has traveled to Europe several times to seek advice from far-right leaders, including politicians from the Nationalist, Czech Workers' Party of Social Justice, and Golden Dawn in Greece. The Trump campaign has also unwittingly generated valuable intel. Heimbach and Parrott are using a map of Trump strongholds to target areas where white nationalism would play best. Quote, if they're ready to vote for Trump, they can't be too far away from being ready to support a real nationalist party, Heimbach reasoned. The TWP is focused on Greater Appalachia and planning to conduct outreach in districts in West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee in anticipation of running local candidates in 2018. Heimbach wanted white millennial candidates who felt disconnected from the system and could speak to other white millennials who felt the same way. He himself plans to run that year for Indiana state legislator. The state GOP has no ground game there, he said. That's disconcerting. That's their planning. That's a level of coordination and political strategy that is, it's almost like a dark mirror to Bernie Sanders' political revolution. He talks about go out there and run for office. They're running very concurrent strategies in these Trump stronghold areas to strengthen their position and legitimize a white nationalist political party. Now, I don't think Trump is going to be the next Hitler. I still think he has no interest in doing that, but he's the dress rehearsal for American fascism. And why it is important to counterpunch this with a messaging solidarity movement with these people in the Rust Belt and in the Appalachian areas is that those people are not necessarily Nazis or white nationalists themselves, but what Trump's victory has shown is they are receptive to messages on that wavelength. And if we don't get there and talk to those people first, these people will. And our country could very well be taken over by these people in concurrent years if the radical left, if the progressive left does not get its crap together. So that's my message right now. That is one of the most important tasks we have in the next coming years. We cannot let these white nationalists, these alt-right people cement themselves into our political system, because if we do, we are going to be in a lot more trouble than we are now. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen, and come back. We're going to have more with the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Keep your dial locked. Your only source for political revolution. This is Wider.
Is your nonprofit organization looking for new ways to get its name out to Western's campus and the greater Kalamazoo community? Why not use the wider airwaves? For more information on how we can work together to promote your organization and events, go to widerfm.org and click on the airtime and sponsorship page under the support tab.
Wider. This is an open slot in the Wider Clock and could be filled with an underwriting announcement for your local Kalamazoo business. For more information, please visit widerfm.org and head to the support page.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program here on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, we were just talking about the importance reaching out to Trump country and trying to stop the rise of this white nationalist political insurgency. And, you know, in whatever capacity you can do that, do it. I think if you are a white ally or whatnot, this is the best thing you can possibly do, because beating down the flames of racism and fascism in this country, that's a task that we are, and, you know, I'm a honky myself, so I can say this. It's something that we have a particular strength and responsibility in doing. And look, if you just want to hang out at a coffee shop and talk with your buddies about James Baldwin all day, that's not going to help. That's not going to help anyone. You need to actually go out and try to change some hearts and minds. And that's the task ahead of us with that one. So, with that in mind, also, We need a strong solidarity with all our brothers and sisters out there who are being harassed and beaten down in light of recent events. And one of the strongest things we could do, though, we need to educate and organize and mobilize. And one of the ways we can do that, investigate where, if you're progressive, get involved in your local Democratic Party. The party is very weak right now. The establishment forces, they got beat down in the election. So it offers a rare opportunity for progressives to flood in at all levels. So, I know a lot of people have disdain for both of the main political parties. I sure do myself, but strategically, this would be a very valuable thing to do. Look into it. Where can you plug in to your Democratic Party at the local level? I would also like to mention, if you're interested in that, there is going to be a meeting tomorrow at Theo and Stacy's on Portage Road. Kalamazoo Progressives. They're going to be talking about some of these more institutional issues about how we build a strong movement in Kalamazoo and get involved both in local politics at the state level, and how the progressives can really make an insurgency. I also advocate any conservatives listening to the program get involved with your party as well. There are two forces at work right now in the conservative sphere, and one of them are like the more forward-looking libertarian conservatives. Those people like Ron Paul, the libertarians like Gary Johnson, Bill Weld. That's where I see a lot of the young people floating to. People who actually agree with a lot of progressives on social justice issues just have very different ideas on how to make it, change it economically. You need to change your party from the inside as well. The Republicans, or be the libertarian offshoot. And I advise that with progressives too. If you want to get involved with the Green Party or the Socialist Party, you can do that as well. But it's also really important to try to change these big parties from the inside, because, like it or not, they are still the engine that runs our corrupt political system. And we're going to need progressives changing the Democrats, making them a party that actually stands for something again. And we're going to need socially just Republicans to enter their party in mass and make sure it doesn't get taken over by these racist white nationalist bozos, because I'm sure there's going to be a big push from those people, especially if they try to organize to the extent that they're doing. If we get some decent people in there who maybe lean more libertarian or are more like the Rand Paul model of Republicans, then we might see a better political system in the future. But right now, those are some very dark paths that we're looking at. So please, anyone out there with a good heart, anti-corruption, get involved. Get involved in the political system. The future is on the line. Future is on the line, ladies and gentlemen. I kid you not. Gonna take a little break. I might be cutting the show a little short this evening. Just FYI, everybody, I will be gone for quite some time. I'm taking leave of absence. I will be going to Standing Rock, North Dakota, to help them out with the pipeline protests that are going on there. Be a water protector, possibly chain myself to some machinery. We will see how that plays out. I don't have a specific time of return. I believe it may be sometime after the inauguration. Be very candid, ladies and gentlemen, my future is a little uncertain. I want to get involved with radical journalism to some extent. My return to Kalamazoo is still kind of up in the air, though. We'll see how things play out. My co-host will be kind of taking over in the interim, and I will be trying to get as much coverage back here to Kalamazoo, be kind of an embedded reporter on site, let all of you know what's going on. I also am going to be trying to get more involved with a new outlet that's emerging, Think Tank Renegades. some buddies of mine from Pennsylvania, starting some stuff out there. So I will be posting more details about that on the Facebook page. Anyway, I want y'all to have a good night. Please keep fighting, all right? Don't lose hope. Don't lose heart. The next few years are going to be tough ones. And I want to let everyone out there who's listening understand the hope is not lost. When I started becoming politically involved this year, I was very depressed about the state of affairs. I used to be in a political rap group called Systemista. Well, we were kind of back together now. We might record a new album, who knows. But we stopped in 2015 because we were all very depressed about the state of the world. We thought there was no hope. I read too many articles about climate change. And to get a little personal with all of you guys, I got really depressed. I spent a summer basically just getting drunk and watching Star Trek. You know, this is could have been us. We're so addicted to fossil fuels. And I thought I wouldn't come back from that. I really did. I planned on basically becoming very insulated. I was going to become a hermit. I would read my science fiction books, maybe interact with the mailman once or twice every day. But that would be my life. And I had some wonderful people around me who helped get me out of that. Special shout out to Iris, my wonderful special lady friend, lives in Taos now. Kisses and love to you girl. But I was still in a very kind of purposeless, directionless place. I had, summoned enough energy to get out of the house every once in a while, but I just didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I felt like I was living in the shadow of Armageddon. I was just passing the time until our civilization inevitably collapsed. But then Mr. Bernie Sanders came out of the woodwork. I got re-engaged. I tried to get him elected. I canvassed, I phone banked. I gave him a lot of my money. And that got the ball rolling on other things. I went and marched on Washington, D.C. I got arrested to protest the corrupting influence of money in politics. I ran all over the country like a madman, pitching political strategies and activating and protesting and getting involved. And what it showed me is even after the election of Donald Trump, I still have more hope in my heart than I ever have about positive change and about our ability to change the system. But here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We are at a fork in the road. And what is going to happen? What's it going to take? It's going to take all of us, more of us, to mobilize than ever before to save our future. And that is the threshold. If we can get enough people, enough of us get off the couch and fight and demand a better world, then we will get it. But if too many of us resign to hopelessness, if too many of us don't do enough, then we will get exactly the kind of future that we deserve. Which future do you want? You want the good one? If you want the good future, it is still there. It is still there for the taking, but we will have to fight for it. And if you are not ready to fight, then we will get exactly the future that we deserve. What kind of future do I want? I want the good one. But it's not up to me, it's up to all of us. I don't want to be that guy living in a cave with his grandkids, in a toxic environment that doesn't support human life, telling them, well, I tried my best. I want to be living with them in some nice Star Trek future and tell them, this was the fruits of our labor. Yea, we were called the millennials, and we rose up against an orange, idiot, arch-conservative system that was going to doom humanity to climate destruction, and we said no. We will not go quietly into that night. We will not give up. We are the future of mankind, and we say no. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you get up and say no with me? Or will you Netflix and chill until the world ends? Choice is yours, ladies and gentlemen. Movement's just getting started. And some of our roughest years are probably ahead of us. But as the old civil rights song from the 60s goes, the only thing that we did wrong was we stayed in the wilderness too long. The only thing we did right was the day that we started to fight. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo. We will be back, I believe, next week. Co-host will be taking over. I will be in Standing Rock, and I will try to give you guys as much reporting on the ground as I can. I love all of y'all. Peace and love to Kalamazoo. I will be back to call out more of our establishment's BS. For right now, there's a pipeline that hasn't surrendered yet. And ladies and gentlemen, I find that quite profoundly obnoxious. So I'm going to be taking my Hoodrat butt out to North Dakota to call a stab BS on them. Keep it dial locked, ladies and gentlemen, and keep fighting.